Describe the evolutionary changes in the pattern of heart among the vertebrates. So students, here the question is the evolutionary changes in the pattern of heart among the vertebrates. We have to find the evolutionary changes which we see in the hearts of vertebrates. So vertebrates includes organisms like Pisces, amphibians, reptile, aves and mammals. Now all these vertebrates possess a heart. Now this heart is a halomuscular organ. So here we can see it is hollow, means it is empty inside, and it is a muscular organ that is made up of a muscle, cardiac muscle. So it is composed of cardiac muscle fibers. Now the function of this heart is to pump oxygen blood to all parts of the body. So the function of the heart is to pump the oxygenated blood to the body. And now the heart, if you compare the heart of a fish, amphibian, reptile and birds, there is slight evolution. Fish has got 2 chambers, amphibian, reptiles have 3, birds and mammals have got 4-chambered heart. So as the organisms evolve, even the heart has evolved with it. It has become more efficient in pumping the blood. So let's see the evolutionary changes in the heart. In Pisces, the heart has got 2 chambers, auricle and ventricle. 1 auricle, 1 ventricle. In amphibians and reptiles, there are 3 chambers, 2 auricles. So here also they have 2 auricles, but only 1 ventricle. So it has got 1 ventricle in amphibians. Here in reptiles, it is only 1 ventricle, but it is not completely separated. In mammals and birds, 2 auricles are present and 2 ventricles are present. So as the organism have evolved, along with that the heart has evolved so that it can work more efficiently. It can supply oxygen more efficiently. So let's consider the heart of a fish. Fish has only 2 chambers, that is auricle and ventricle. So here we can see auricle is also represented by atrium and ventricle. So it has got 1 atrium at the lower side and 1 ventricle at the upper side. And these 2 chambers remain undivided. Now the speciality of the fish of an heart is, now the heart receives and pumps only deoxygenated blood. The atrium receives deoxygenated blood and this is pumped into the ventricle. So it receives and pumps deoxygenated blood. Now this deoxygenated blood from the heart enters into the gills. It reaches the gills. So gills is a respiratory organ of a fish. So in the gills, respiration takes place and the oxygen enters into the gills. Now the deoxygenated blood which enters into the gills here gets converted into oxygenated, and this oxygenated blood is supplied to the different tissues. Now in the tissue, again the oxygen is consumed by the cells. Now the blood becomes again deoxygenated and this will be pumped back to the heart. So the circulation continues. So a Piscean heart has got 2 chambers, auricle and ventricle. It receives deoxygenated blood and it pumps the same deoxygenated blood, but oxygenation is taking place in the gills. This is about the Piscean heart. Now let's see about the amphibian heart. So amphibians like frogs have got 3-chambered heart. It has 2 auricles and 1 ventricle. So here we can see this is auricle and this part is the ventricle. So there are 2 auricles and 1 ventricle. The auricles are completely divided. So there will be no mixing of the blood in the auricles. The upper chambers are divided by a structure called septum. They are called interauricular septum. It separates the right auricles and the left auricles. But if we consider the ventricle, this portion, it is not separated, it is undivided. So the auricles are separated in the amphibians, but the ventricles are not separated. Now the oxygenated blood from the lungs enters into the left ventricle. Here it enters. From the lungs, it enters into the left auricle. Simultaneously, the deoxygenated blood from the body tissue enters into the right auricle. So this part is receiving deoxygenated blood and this part of the heart is receiving oxygenated blood. Now both of this will enter into the ventricle. So here, since oxygenated and deoxygenated blood enters into the ventricle and ventricle is not divided, there will be mixing of oxygenated and deoxygenated blood, and this will be pumped further. So this is the drawback of the three-chambered heart. Such kind of heart is not sufficient or it is not efficient in its circulation, and it is seen in the amphibians. So in three-chambered heart, two auricles will be present and one ventricle is present. The auricles are separated, but ventricle is not separated, and it receives both oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. So here mixing takes place and this mixed blood is pumped to the different tissues of the body. Now, just like amphibians, even reptiles have three-chambered heart, or we can say it as incomplete four-chambered heart. So it has got two auricles and one ventricle, but this ventricle is divided into right ventricle and left ventricle, but they are not completely separated. So it is called incomplete four-chambered heart. We can also say it has got three-chambered heart. Apart from this, they have an accessory chamber called sinus venosus. This is nothing but an extended pouch-like structure which is present outside the heart. It helps in receiving an accessory chamber. It receives the blood from the superior and inferior vena cava. Now here also, like amphibians, the right auricles receives deoxygenated blood and the left auricles receives oxygenated blood. Both are pumped into the ventricles and a slight mixing of blood takes place in the reptile circulation. But crocodiles, alligators are exceptions. So in crocodiles and alligators, the chambers are completely separated. So here they have got four-chambered heart. Apart from these crocodiles and alligators, the rest organisms and reptiles, they have incomplete four-chambered heart, or we can say it as three-chambered heart. Now, the last one, coming to four-chambered heart, this kind of heart is seen in aves and mammals. So in birds and mammals, we can see four-chambered heart. They have got two pairs of auricles and two pairs of ventricles. The upper two chambers are called auricles, that is atria, and the lower chambers are called ventricles. So here we can see these are the upper chambers, they are auricles, and these two are the lower chambers, they are ventricle. And both the upper chambers are separated by the septum, and both the lower chambers are also separated by the septum. So a muscular valve called septum separates the auricles and ventricles. The right auricles receives deoxygenated blood and the right ventricle receives deoxygenated blood, whereas left auricles receives oxygenated blood and left ventricles receives oxygenated blood. Since these two chambers are separated by the septum, there will be no mixing of oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. So the blood rich in oxygen will be pumped to the tissues and the other body organs. So this kind of circulation is more efficient. So four-chambered heart is more efficient heart in circulating the blood. So this heart is seen in aves and mammals. So these are the evolutionary changes in the heart of vertebrates. So here we can see the fishes have got two-chambered heart, auricles and ventricle, and both receives the deoxygenated blood. It is pumped into the gills. In the gills, oxygenation takes place and this will be circulated to the tissues. In case of amphibians and reptiles, they have three-chambered heart, two auricles and one ventricles. Here also two auricles and one ventricles. In reptiles, we can say the heart is incompletely four-chambered, but not completely four-chambered. Whereas in crocodile and alligators, they have got complete four-chambered heart. So here's both the cases, amphibians and reptiles, slight mixing of oxygenated and deoxygenated blood occurs in the ventricles. In case of birds and mammals, they have four-chambered heart, two auricles and two ventricles. Auricles, the right side receives deoxygenated blood and the left side receives oxygenated blood. Since the chambers are separated by the muscular valve called septum, the oxygenation and deoxygenated blood does not mix, so it is more efficient heart. So these are the evolutionary changes in the pattern of heart among the vertebrates.